Good morning, readers, and welcome to Bookish Breakfast Family Edition.
Yay!
So, you all know Roz from Scallydandling About the Books, and I think Steve, who doesn't have his own channel.
I've had a guest appearance in Roz's Scallydandling.
You've had a guest appearance on here as well.
Oh,
We
yeah.
talked about the Scarlet Letter.
Did we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
And
long time ago.
you did Cromwellathon?
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
So,
So he's been around.
I've been around.
And why are we all here together? Well, we've made a bubble. We're in a bubble. And we're going to have a weekend together because the rates are very low where these guys live and where I live, and we generally just wanted to see each other and
Yeah. The time had come.
the time has come, yeah.
The rates of infection, not the other rates.
Oh yeah. The reproduction, the R rates.
The R rates
are low.
for coronavirus are in a real
Low in our
low.
areas. And we've got to seize the opportunity before the start of the second wave.
Yes.
So we're a bubble this weekend, and we're going to do a little family review of Jane Austen July so far, because we've taken this read along and we've made it into a family affair.
Indeed. And I've definitely been in a Jane Austen July bubble.
Yeah, oh definitely.
This
The
month.
whole of July.
I haven't.
Yeah.
As we'll find out.
Steve's been slightly less participative in the events of this month, but we'll just start by thinking about some of the prompts and
I'm making a to scale appropriate intervention in this video by appearing for 30 seconds and then leaving to go read fan fiction on my phone because I've bounced out of both the movies and not read any books. So.
So
There you
did not get very involved in Jane Austen July.
By next year, I'm
Well,
gonna
you're gonna work on them.
Yeah.
So because he reads quickly, you could probably read them all in a week if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about what Jane Austen major works we've read.
That being the first of the J prompts.
Yes. And we'll start with Steve.
I've only really read Mansfield Park, although I've seen endless television adaptations of Jane Austen throughout my life.
Insufficient.
Yeah, I think I know the stories by now.
That's not the point.
It's just a question of
No, it's the
watching the adaptations and arguing about miscasting and interpretation. The one book that I have read, and in fact I've read twice, is Mansfield Park. Originally I read it in 1984 at an evening class for an English A-level. I decided I wanted to go to university after working for 10 years, and so I went to do the A-level, and it was one of the books on there. I hated it. I just thought nothing really very much happened in it, and I couldn't really see the point of it. Fortunately, one of the questions on my A-level paper that year was Fanny Price's A Monster of Inactivity discuss. Yes. So I went through it, and I didn't do much discussing, I have to say, because it did confirm my bias, really. Fortunately, I passed the English A-level and then got other qualifications and went to university where I met this person. So it wasn't all bad. But last year I decided to reread Mansfield Park, and I found that I enjoyed it a lot more because I realised that she was in fact taking the piss out of everybody.
Which is.
And once I decided you could read it as a comedy, it made much more sense, was much more enjoyable. So that's my Jane Austen July.
Yeah, and that's the important thing to maybe remember about Mansfield Park. If you think it's a really boring book, it's actually...
Yeah, read it as a comedy.
Really funny.
Because I think I read it as a romance the first time I read it. And I expected the kind of love story that you get in Pride and Prejudice, which is also a comedy, but you get that kind of romantic power, and you don't really in Mansfield Park, but you do get a lot of amusement.
And characters, brilliant characters.
Yeah, and just satire, dripping with satire.
Oh yeah, it was very funny. So.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a very Jane Austen-esque thing to do, to read one of her books and then go to another place and meet the love of your life. So
Oh, you're very cute.
So,
if I had known how much you disliked Jane Austen at the point when we met, who knows whether things would have blossomed.
I think even at that stage I wouldn't have written off her entirely on the basis of disliking one of her books.
Okay. Because you're a very fair-minded person.
But you still haven't read any other one yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of books. I'm having a Charles Dickens July. It doesn't.
You are.
In the literative sense, but.
So what Jane Austen, obviously that wasn't this month, but you and I have both read Jane Austen major works this month, so what have you
I have, and what I did was I got to reread Emma.
Which is a delight.
Oh, such a delight. And I have realised that like every time, like if you ask me which is my favourite Jane Austen novel or my favourite Jane Austen heroine or my most love to hate Jane Austen character, I've realised that hierarchy moves according to which I've read most recently, basically.
But I would have said, if I was guessing which your favourite was, I would have always said Emma or Persuasion.
Yes.
Because I think those ones kind of crop up for you.
They do. It's like, I mean, Pride and Prejudice is utterly wonderful, but Emma and Persuasion are really the two that vie for top space. But then, when I recently reread Mansfield Park, it shot right up there.
Yeah, I love Mansfield Park.
And it had never been a contender. It was. I always thought like Sense and Sensibility, Northanger Abbey, and Mansfield Park were like second tier, and then Mansfield Park was suddenly right. Yeah. Up there.
Whereas I think I put maybe Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and Mansfield Park as my top tier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that I don't absolutely love Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility and Emma.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't think Sense and Sensibility is anybody's absolute favourite.
Really? Well, prove us wrong.
Prove us wrong. Tell us if Sense and Sensibility is your number one favourite Jane Austen, tell us and tell us why.
I think the other works are a bit maybe smoother and maybe more internally coherent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or there's someone, and it might, I think both Brian and Hannah were talking about Sense and Sensibility as being a book about that. If you read it thinking of it as a book about sisters.
Yeah, I think Katie said that last year, but Brian definitely said it this year because he was talking about whether there's any book that has such a good brother relationship.
Yes, and then that really focus on that as the primary relationship, which obviously it is in the book, isn't it? Then it gives you a different sort of feeling about Sense and Sensibility, which I love too because I love all of them, and Lady Susan.
So you've read Emma.
Emma, reread Emma.
I have read Northanger Abbey and Persuasion, and I've already talked about Northanger Abbey on here, but I've really enjoyed rereading Persuasion as well. And I had to read two because I read What Matters in Jane Austen, and he talks about so much from so many of the different books that I kind of felt like I was reading all of them. Yes. And now I really want to read Mansfield Park as well, and I've already read Pride and Prejudice this year, and I just can't reread all of them all at the same time. I just can't.
Some people do that. Some people reread all of them every year, don't they? Yeah, but
I think
so many books out there.
Now. Yeah, that's the thing.
But I do get different things from them every time.
Like this time when I was reading Persuasion, I was thinking about, I guess, the importance of separation in the book. So obviously you've got the separation between Anne and Captain Wentworth.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of characters who go away for a while and come back, or there's a lot of characters who we meet again after they've been absent for a while, like Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Clay has been away to be married and then come back.
Yes.
Mr. Elliot obviously reappears.
Yes.
Captain Wentworth has been distant from Captain Benwick and Captain Harville, and he meets them again.
Yeah.
So there's like this running theme of meeting people after a certain length of time, and whether they're the same person or not, and whether their character has changed. And it seems like through the book, actually people's characters don't change. So she's still friends with Mrs. Smith after a long period of time, and Mr. Elliot is still no spoilers, nothing. But you know, like the people are consistent.
Yeah.
I guess it seems to be the argument there.
Yeah. Because I've read for my non-fiction related to Jane Austen, Lucy Worsley's Jane Austen at Home. So I've had her sort of biography, as it were, very much in my mind as I was this month, more so than I normally would. Like you reading mine and giving you different, and that was, I suppose, I always think you shouldn't kind of interpret someone's books as, oh, well, she writes that because that happened to her. You know, that's a very limited way.
Simplistic, yeah.
But it does bring home how many separations like that she had in her life.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so one of her brothers is adopted and is living with this other family. Then, and two of them are at sea, and then she and Cassandra are like so close, and yet they're quite often separated, which people say is a good thing because it means that we've got all these letters that they exchange. But you know, one or the other of them would go off to Godmersham for months on it. So there's lots of those separations in her life. Yeah.
And there's also quite a few bereavements, and that's the same in Persuasion as well. It's almost like she's trying to illustrate what could have happened to Anne and Captain Wentworth, because there's a lot of widows.
Yeah.
There's obviously Bennick, who's lost his fiance while they were waiting for the fortune. So it's like she's kind of hinting at all the things that can go wrong,
Yes.
and kind of highlights how lucky Anne and Wentworth are.
Yeah.
Should we move on to another
Yes.
prompt where we're going to talk about adaptations,
Oh,
which
yes.
is obviously in the watching half of the prompts.
Yes.
So what have you guys been watching then?
Oh, do you want to kick off?
We watched the Jane Austen book club.
Well, you weren't the biggest fan of that work.
I'll try and find something nice to say about it.
I'll give you a minute.
Long pause now.
Yeah, it finished. I could see why some people would like it. It's not my kind of film. It's not the film that I would choose to go and see in any way, shape or form. I thought that it seemed to me that a significant number of the actors in it hadn't read Jane Austen, and if they had, they didn't understand Jane Austen.
I did.
And
I
they
remember
played-
watching it. Yeah, and thinking, did this, like, potentially the person who came up with the idea knew Jane Austen relatively well,
Yes.
but did the
That's
people
what-
who
yeah.
executed it,
All the rest of the people involved in the film.
possibly
Yeah.
haven't?
I think it was written out of genuine love and appreciation, but
Yeah.
actually the execution of it I thought was dreadful.
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
But it's based on a book, so potentially the author of the book
Yeah.
had
But-
that love and appreciation for
Yeah.
Jane Austen, and then the people who made it into a film didn't.
But I've heard people say, like on BookTube, that like, the film is better than the book.
Oh, really?
So it did make me think, I'm not reading, I'm
Yeah.
definitely not reading that book. But yes, I mean, you know, we watched after the first 10 or 15 minutes, we were saying, oh God, should we just abandon this? Because I was like, oh, this is dreadful.
Yeah.
And it did. I warmed to it a bit. I
thought
laughed
it
a few
had
times.
endearing moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, but it did feel a bit phony.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Okay.
for me,
Yeah,
and
that's
and I
reasonable.
don't watch that sort of American like romance comedy thing. It's not
I can
my.
see why people like it. It's just not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for you.
I've
Yeah.
come all a bit snobby.
Speaking of phony, I watched Clueless.
Oh, yes.
Just the other day, which is brilliant.
Which is a brilliant
It's,
film.
yeah.
Very funny.
Yeah, quite very funny. And what I like about it is, I actually think that it's a weird adaptation of Emma because Emma's not kind of clever enough. You can't see it as a long-term relationship because you don't really Emma as the she's not called Emma in it. I can't remember. It might be Cher or something.
Yeah.
She's called something else
The
anyway.
character
Um,
that is the Emma character.
You feel like she's not actually got that intelligence that Emma in the book has that makes her kind of like a good option for Knightley,
Yes.
who again is not called Knightley. I
Yeah.
think he might be called Josh.
Yeah.
I've watched this like
How many times have you watched this film? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Carry on.
I watched it 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah.
I should really remember these things. But actually, she does have little moments of intelligence. Like, she's taking a picture of the character who's Harriet, and she's like, oh, she's like one of those Botticelli babes. And she's got like little moments where she references things that she knows about, but somehow the way that she presents herself is just completely airheaded.
Kind of ditzy and airhead, yeah. But I guess that's to appeal to the audience that it was made for.
Yeah,
Although it's a more sort of
high
subtle-
school film
Yeah.
audience. So yeah, it kind of covers the both sides.
Yeah.
I was just sort of thinking of adaptations of Emma, although it's not an obvious, or it's not an official one, I think. But we both read Cold Comfort Farm this year
Oh yeah.
by Stella Gibbons, and at the start of that, one of the characters says that she's just going to go to the country and rewrite Emma. And if you read it on that lines, there is a lot of, you know, a posh, rich young woman goes to a slightly out of the way setting for her, and then matchmakes
Yes.
without realising that the person that she should be matchmaking with is more or less under her nose. So so I think that I would. Yeah, and it sort of explicitly says that at the beginning of the book. The character says, "I'm going to rewrite Emma."
I'm gonna have to reread it and
Yeah.
look at it
in that light.
perspective.
Yeah.
And so I think that,
Interesting.
but again, it was a lovely satire. I thought,
Yeah.
Gorgeous book.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
That was
do-
one
I
of my
do
one
love
of my
it.
June books of the month.
Yeah.
That was.
So speaking again of adaptations of Emma, I believe you may have watched a film of Emma.
We watched the 2020 Emma.
Yeah.
And you watched the other
2009 Emma.
2009 Emma.
Yeah.
So
Well, I was saying about endless adaptations.
Just 1 month a year. 1 month a year.
just
we watch.
one, just just July.
Doesn't stop them making the films though, does it? So what have we done? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think they should leave Emma and go back to, like, there's no good version of Persuasion.
No.
And we're quite limited in terms of good versions of Mansfield Park, because
Yes.
I just have to write off all of the ones that make it something that it isn't, like
Yeah.
the one with Billie Piper and the 1996 version. It's a good film, but it's not Mansfield Park.
Not Mansfield Park, yes.
So we watched the 1983 six-part series,
Oh, yes.
which is very, very, very accurate to the book, but possibly more Steve's first interpretation of the book than later interpretations of the book. It's like word for word says some of the conversations, but it doesn't really capture the humour, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really capture the relationships. Like, you don't know who's in love with who until they kind of tell you who's in love with who, or, you know, make it really obvious. So it doesn't really capture the kind of like the chemistry, which
Yeah.
the 2009 Emma really does. Like, it really enables you to
Right.
see who likes who.
Yes, yeah. I think one thing that I've realised, and Jane Austen July is helpful for this,
Yeah.
I've realised, is that basically any adaptation of a Jane Austen book that I have read relatively recently, I'm going to think is
Not good enough.
just not good enough.
Yeah.
It's no good. It could be that, like, so the 2020 Emma, I mean, it's a beautiful film, isn't it?
Lovely setting, lovely locations, well filmed, good, nice music. I enjoyed the music.
Yes.
Johnny Flynn, who plays Mr. What's his name?
Knightley.
Knightley, contributes some of the music, and he's got a nice folk voice, I think. And the Watersons and June Table and people like that.
Sounds good.
Lots to like about it, but it didn't really set me alight. I think.
And it actually made me quite cross, and which is disappointing, because I did want to like it, because the Gwyneth Paltrow one was so disappointing.
It
so
was quite disappointing.
Yeah, so I was really, and everyone said, "Oh no, this one's much better. You'll like it much better." So I was well disposed towards it,
I think it was better
and it was better.
than my,
But
you don't have to try very hard to be better than the Paltrow version.
But did I moan? Or was I irritatingly moany during this film?
I got the impression that you thought that one of the characters wasn't as attractive as she might have been.
So we were talking about this morning. I haven't seen the 2020 Emma,
You've seen
but
the
I've
trailer.
seen the trailer, and the first thing that I said on seeing the trailer was, Harriet Smith is not pretty enough.
Yeah.
She has got to be pretty, and maybe even slightly sexy. She's got to be physically attractive, because
The whole plot,
depends
whole
on...
chunks of the plot depend on the fact that Harriet is very physically pretty, attractive.
Yeah, because Emma's got to be
Emma's
noticed
got
her
to
in the
notice
first
her.
place,
She noticed her because of
because
it.
she's pretty.
She assumes that she's a gentleman's illegitimate daughter because she's so
pretty and
physically
elegant,
well-formed,
and,
yes.
and then she reasons with Mr. Knightley that, a gentleman is likely to marry her because they're going to fall in love with her because she's so pretty. And then later on she thinks, oh gosh, Mr. Knightley's going to fall in love with her because she's so pretty and marry her against his better judgment.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Not to say anything
This
bad about
poor
her,
actress, yes.
but
she's made
to look a little bit maybe dowdy, or
or
just not as attractive as she probably is.
Yes.
Whereas she should be made to look as
yeah.
I think that's a casting thing.
yeah.
I think that's about stars and
Yes.
who wants to appear, what levels of attractiveness in order of.
Well, yes, it's like
Yeah.
okay, so Emma is the the main protagonist, the starring role.
Yeah.
So that actress has to be the most attractive
Yeah. Whereas
person in the film.
I
Whereas in a
personally
novel,
would have I'd have swapped them around, because Harriet's supposed to be not necessarily blonde but very, very pretty.
Yeah.
Whereas Emma, like she doesn't talk very much about physical appearance, but she does specifically say that Emma's got like a hazel eye. So to me, I've always felt like that she's a brunette, and she's not necessarily. She's supposed to be, handsome, but not necessarily gorgeous.
And it's her sort of well, as Mr. Knightley says, her sort of open personality and her wit and her good humour and her sort of enthusiasm for life that makes her attractive, rather than
being blatantly rude to friends.
But that's what's so good about the
it's
2009
wonderful.
version, is
Yes.
that it makes her rudeness. You can see what her rudeness comes out
Yes.
of. You can see her kind of good humour getting carried away with itself and things
And
like that.
actually, that is one of the good things about the 2021, is that, and I've seen people criticise it for making Emma too sort of haughty and snobbish and so on. And it's like, no, that's the character. That is what she is. That is how it. That actually, the Emma was, apart from being a bit too kind of, let's say, blonde and sexy sort of thing, her character is relatively close to the character in the book.
Right.
So that got a tick for me.
Right.
I'm not wild about the actress, but she hit the spot for the fact that she's a very flawed personality, and then it's her growth and change that is the interest of the story.
Yeah. I suppose. I know I've only seen the trailer, and Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading said probably don't bother to watch the whole thing until you can get it for free, which I can't at the moment. But I feel like, from what I've seen, I think I'd struggle to believe that Knightley could love her as much as he... Oh, I've gone all Mrs. Elton. Mr. Knightley can love her as much as...
Oh, yes.
My goodness.
How very...
That's a spoiler alert there, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Could love her as much as he does, whereas the 2009 version, it's very clear how you could love her that much, because she is just essentially quite lovable, as well as being, quite a little bit snobby. Like the way that she goes, oh, like she just does this very nice, oh, like this isn't good enough for me. I don't know, it just conveys the...
No, it's quite believable that he could love her. And I think the thing that sometimes you forget about Emma is that she's had a very, very limited life. She lives 16 miles from London and she's never been there. Yeah. And outing to Box Hill is a big trip. She's clever, but she's not really worldly wise, or she has had a lot of different influences on her, which is why Mr. Knightley is such a
big deal to her,
a big deal. And Miss Taylor, Bill Nighy as Mr. Woodhouse was one of the hits of the film for me.
Yeah. Well, he always is.
Oh, he's such a good actor.
Well,
he plays Bill
Nighy very, very well.
But because the thing with Mr. Woodhouse is he is irritating and manipulative, and it's tempting to just kind of like play that for laughs and play up the fact that he's sort of ludicrous hypochondriac and so on. But all the way through the novel, we keep hearing how much everybody likes him and how fond they are of him. He's a really well-loved figure.
Local character,
and actually, so Bill Nighy got it right, because you do feel like he's kind of, he's ludicrously fussy, but it comes from quite... It's selfish, but it's also caring.
Gentle selfishness.
The gentle selfishness.
Yeah. But I got that from Michael Gambon as well.
Yes, I think you're right.
Anyway, we should maybe move on from me talking about how much I love the 2009.
Yeah. Oh, I've just got to moan about Robert Martin as well.
Moan about Robert Martin,
2020, because he is an actor who's brilliant in Sex Education.
Yeah.
But he's got this complete like bumpkin face. Poor man.
That's how it was directed.
No. But he's sort of retroussé nose, and he just poppy eyes. You're
gonna have to see this now to find out what it looks like.
And again, it's a key plot point that Emma misjudges Robert Martin. That Robert Martin is a decent, respectable, intelligent farmer, and Mr. Knightley considers him like a friend,
as well as a tenant,
and then make him this kind of like figure of fun.
Yeah, and that's not what Harriet deserves. Harriet deserves this, a nice.
And the other thing that you will find really irritating if you watch it, so actually don't pay for.
There's kind of a pleasure in watching something and getting irritated about it.
Isabella, so what do Emma's sister. What do we know about Emma's sister? She has a kind of her husband, Mr. Knightley's brother, is a bit grumpy. Yeah. He's a grumpy man, isn't he? And she is incredibly sort of blissed out, domestic. Do you think?
I'm sure in the book she's a little bit of a hypochondriac. Like
she's got traces
of her father.
Yeah, hypochondriac and terribly fussy about the children and. All of that, like
very much
like
a home bird.
But very much. So how did they do her in this film? She's all snappy and waspy.
Oh, is she?
Yes.
Well, that's different.
Well, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
just wrong.
Not having it.
I feel that we should move on from Emma before we rip it to shreds.
Can I just say that I thought Johnny Flynn was an excellent Mr. Knightley then?
Fine. Because in the trailer, I think he looks a little bit maybe foppish. He looks like Frank Churchill.
No. He's got no personal vanity, has he?
No, it looks very rough-edged.
Oh, right,
Rough-edged, but lovely. Oh, do you know what I realised rereading Emma?
Yeah.
You know, there's this tag going around. I forget which it was, but I did it, and one of the questions was about your kind of bookish crush.
It's Mr. Knightley.
And I realised when I reread Emma that my bookish crush was Mr. Knightley, and yeah.
Says that too. Steve, what you've got to do is read Emma, and then you'll see why she likes Mr. Knightley.
He might not be my bookish crush now, but he was when I read it as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so when people talk about it maybe being a bit perverse that he's 16 years older than Emma and moans at her about things that,
I actually think it's one of the most believable long-term relationships.
Yes, it is.
Like compared to like
Yeah.
Eleanor Dashwood and no spoilers, spoiler no.
Yeah.
Compared to Eleanor Dashwood's eventual match.
Yes.
I think Emma and Mr. Knightley
is really
go
believable.
together a lot
And
better.
although he does kind of tell her off kind of things, it's not in a coercive control sort of way. It's more like, I want you to just be
it's
who
not
you can be, and you're
Yeah.
not. I'm upset because you did something that I don't like, but I'm desperately in love with you.
Yeah,
It's
but it's what you do with your partner as well.
Yeah.
You let them know when they've maybe done something that you like. I'm trying to find the right words. Like you give your opinion on what they do in an open and honest way, and
because you value them.
Yeah,
and
because I suppose you see it as like a shared enterprise as well. I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There we go. Anyway, that was a lot.
And
this
we've
is
talked
getting
for quite a long
long.
time.
We should probably not stay too much
We've
more.
both read Miss Austen, haven't we? Which
Yes.
we won't talk about now because we've run out of time.
We'll have a little Miss Austen discussion another time.
Yeah, well, what we are going to do is we're going to talk about Lover's Vows, which is our Jane Austen contemporary read.
Yes.
And I have been talking about The Mistress of Udolpho, which is my other Jane Austen contemporary read. If you happen to be following Born to Be a Heroine...
and you should be.
And you saw the very, very short video that came out last night, that was because these guys were like just driving up to the door a little bit earlier than expected, and I'd been putting it off all day, so it was a little bit rushed.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
So you will get more
Of
Udolpho.
Next week.
And we will do
Lover's Vows.
discussing drama about Lover's Vows, and maybe we'll try and squeeze in a little discussion about Miss Austen, which
We'll
we'll
see.
go through.
We'll see
We'll see how we get on.
Anyway, thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
And,
Nice to see you all
and thank
again.
you to these guys for
Joining us.
And talk to us in the comments about Jane Austen.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.